All right, hello everyone, and here we are for another review. And if at all I seem distracted in my videos, because someone talked about this recently in the comments, and yes, I have been distracted recently in my videos because I keep an eye on whether or not my computer is about to crash, which has happened way too much often, or way too often lately, I should say. But I'm going to try and focus on this video. I'm going to try and talk about it. We only have one unit we're going to be reviewing in this video. But first, let's just talk about banners really quickly. What if you want Golbez, the first villain that I am going to count from another Final Fantasy? No, I don't count Delita. Okay, let's just keep going. So what options do you have to get this character? Well, first of all, as you can see, there's a 5-step up here. This is the JP Classic. Basically 5 steps, 2 of them free, about 4,500 paid lapis if you're into paid lapis. There is the, of course, regular banner, as you can see right here, showing off his limit burst, which we'll take a peek in a second just to tease you. And there is a 9-step. At the beginning of the month of September, when the best banner started, it looked like 9 steps were disappearing. Thankfully, that only seems to be for best units. That is still a problem, but pretty happy that for Golbez, this is going to still be a thing. So globalers who are worried about it, you can worry a little bit less. And yes, he does have a Gil banner. All of the Final Fantasy IV characters actually have Gil banners, so that's great news if you're willing to sink tons of millions per day to get shards. Good news, we have opportunities for you. All right, but let's talk about this mage. And before I get into this review, the only thing I haven't seen before doing this review is his damage output. And the main reason is because, of course, friend unit you can only use once. And I really wanted to do the demonstration for this video. So I've already looked at his kit. I know enough about it. I know what I think about him in general. So I feel like I have a good, grasp exactly on how I'm going to end up what my evaluation of this character is. So first of all, Dark Elemental, limited, you are kind of a tank, kind of a mage. You'll see what I mean by that in a little bit here. And as you can see, here are his posted in-game stats. We're going to take a look at his 120 version. 3 movement, 1 jump. Primary class is a brand new job, as you would expect, with sub-jobs being Green Mage. Scholar has access to rods, armor, helmets, and accessories. Taking a look at his Trust Mastery for a minute, it is a helmet, meaning that it will not be accessible for a ton of units, but it might be interesting for a few units that can equip helmets. I mean, its HP is nice, defense is nice, big spirit, critical evasion, but the TMR skill is a 2-use 24 TP cost that reduces attack skill activation time by 500 for 4 turns. I am curious how exactly, if this is coded only for physical or magical attacks. Because if it's only for magical, then I feel like it really limits itself to a few units. But if it's for physical attacks, I wonder if Dragoons could use this. Because that's just a really big debuff of skill activation. That might make jumps a bigger, possibility for being really good. All right. But Mastery ability, of course, gives himself a 15% magic boost and a decrease in attack skill activation by 300. So you can see between his TMR and his Mastery that he has a lot of skill skill casting time essentially removed from his kit. So that, I think, is not going to be a problem for him at all. So let's switch over to a party view. We're going to be heading over to we want something not too difficult because this is a new unit. We only get one chance at recording this. So let's head into, I don't know. We want enough enemies, don't we? Let's do this one. And we are just going to go in here and choose our 140 or 120. And now we're going to take a look at what his stats look like without a proper party even. So as you can see, it does have his brand new weapon, which has light killer and magic attack up, and a really nice magic stat. So this is a good, well, this is a necessity for this character. If you're going to be running this character, you need this. As you can see, he also has this bracer on, he has his TMR, he has Bahamut, and the Ramu vision card boosting his magic. So what are his stats looking like? Approximately 6,000 HP, which for a mage is very strong, I don't think I need to say. Really a good magic stat, as you can see here, at almost 1,300 with that kind of HP too. And a defense of 58 and a spirit of 43 is really huge for a mage. In turn, as you can see, like below me, the text says jokingly that like he is a tank, but really he does have a massive amount of defense capability. And as you can see here, even with the equipment that we do have, I mean, he is able to pump out some seriously nice stats. The only thing that's maybe kind of worrying is his speed, but there has to be some kind of a drawback to a unit like this. Taking a look at the rest of his kit, gets you an idea of what his resistance can be potentially. This build, as you can see, is very strong against shooting, already at almost 50% resistance, and 15% against magic anyway. His two weaknesses are essentially strike and spears. If he comes into those types of damage, he could be potentially really weak to it, and of course, holy magic. So this character is very, very well built, I think, with a few noticeable weaknesses. But let's switch over to an entire dark base party to see how his stats end up being a little bit better. So you can see with the speed boost, he gets up to approximately 89 agility. We're looking at a slightly higher mag, not too terribly much, but overall a darkness based party will greatly increase his damage output. And let's just head over to a specific mage party as well, because as you can see, he does get a pretty nice magic boost for being in a magic party, but he really doesn't lose any defense and spirit. Makes him just a really big threat, a really, really, really big threat. So, what about skills? What does he have that's so good? Well, first of all, Scholar. I don't know. Do I really need to talk about why Scholar is good at this point? Scholar is just a really defensive, capable mage. So if you have already a really tanky mage, like this character is, and then you add Scholar on top of it, gives him defense increases, ways to decrease attack on opponents, and not only that, of course, a couple of the big things, like for instance restoring his own CT and decreasing activation time more if it is even a problem at this point, or increasing dark attack for an entire darkness based party. What's interesting from Scholar is it's missing Rockfall, which I thought was going to be a shoo-in, but apparently not. So he doesn't have that HP regeneration from Scholar, and that is a notable point for a weakness. Taking a look at Green Mage, I feel doesn't really add that much for him. I mean, he does have one of Green Mage's big abilities that essentially decreases all elemental resistance. That's nice for a lot of stuff. Decrease agility, defense, spirit, do some non-elemental damage, but Green Mage doesn't feel like it really brings that much to the party anyway. Thankfully, his main job is just really damn good, starting with a HP absorb ability with a 141% modifier, so that gives him some HP regeneration options, and a damage ability that is non-elemental that can inflict poison. Poison actually is an ability I actually am really impressed with a few amount of times, just because it can get through some really defensively annoying enemies, and that just makes it a really good option for this character. Taking a look at the main kit, well, there's a lot to talk about here, so I'm going to try and keep it relatively short by not trying to find everything in here. But taking a look at what he does have, this ability does get a boost. So we have first of all, some defensive capabilities such as this one, which reduces the damage taken by 30% for 3 turns and absorbs 30% of the damage done for 3 turns. A really interesting thing that essentially makes him more survivable, which is really good. A lot of mages don't have ways of just tanking damage a lot. And again, really high defense and spirit stats, so that's really good too. Taking a look at his other ability, the one that is for 20, there it is. This one gets upgraded into his EX, basically gives him a magic attack increase by 35 for 3 turns, a debuff resistance for all attack type resistance by 100. So you can't lower, if he casts his ability, like you can't essentially lower his resistances to damages, and that makes him just very strong against gunners, for example, which we've seen he can get a high amount of resistance for. Obviously not the only thing, but continuing on. And debuff resistance for all elemental resistance too. This makes Golbez just really, really capable of absorbing a lot of damage, but that's not all he can do. He has basic attacks that can lower spirit. He has other large AoE abilities that can also decrease spirit too, and this one gets upgraded. So not only is it a 165% modifier, not as only is it a huge AoE, not only is it not the biggest AP cast, and it decreases spirit for the enemies by 30 for 3 turns, which is pretty good. You know, just pretty good. And a 25% chance to inflict immobilize as well, which is a nasty status effect if your opponent is just out of range and still just hitting them from a distance kind of thing. So that's really, really good. And then we get into a few others. One, which is an AoE, which I do believe is not that one, this one. It is a 220% modifier, but it also gets a 60% increase if the target is silenced, poisoned, immobilized, and has a spirit 25% chance of, or spirit. I do believe that's supposed to be like spirit down, and it has a 25% chance of inflicting silence. So nasty against other mages and very strong. Chance to also, so that's great. Sorry, I'm repeating that last one again. But the last ability he has is a 220% modifier. This is his job level 25 that increases his own spirit penetration by 50 for a turn. But it's on a really powerful ability. So essentially, this ability just is his, and this is where we start getting into some of his problems. He really doesn't have good ways of increasing his own spirit penetration, and nowhere in his kit can he lower magic resistance. That means that while Golbez is a very tanky mage, if he comes up against another tank with high magic resistance, it can potentially shut him down really hard because he just doesn't have ways around it so much. He can get through spirit, but only on his biggest ability, which requires the most amount of investment. Sure, job level 25 is definitely the thing you want to get to nowadays, but it is a really important thing for a damage dealer to be able to get through tanks. And if he can't decrease magic resistance on a target, he has to rely on someone else doing it. That relies on turn priority, and that is a big blind spot in this character's kit. Thankfully, though, does have a few other things to really power him up. First of all, his Counterability, which is, has some range on it, counters all damage, and absorbs 20% of the AP that was used. AP regeneration is very good, I hear, so let's give that a thumb up. As for what he gets for supports, Scholar gets, decrease and, defense up. Those usual ones. Green Mage has debuff and magic resistance, as well as debuff duration, that old shtick. But his 2 new ones are pretty much easily the best. So first of all, we have a increase of defense and spirit by 30 for 3 turns with an increase to missile resistance by 12%. So yes, this is kind of like Garble, and I hear people like Garble, so they're probably going to like this. Unfortunately, it's not 5 turns. That is a little bit scary. Golbez is a little slow, so that might work out okay with the enemies coming to him. But if he has terrain-related issues, this can end up essentially being wasted on the wrong map. Because if you can't hit the enemy and you just use a whole bunch of turns, you're losing a lot of defense and spirit to this. And this is one of the things that essentially is powering him up here. In what you're viewing, and once it's gone, he is a fair bit weaker, and that could end up getting him killed. Really depends on the map, really depends on like a lot of stuff here on whether or not this is really good to run. But a 30 defense and spirit increase is just really good. And his other one, big HP increase and big magic increase, so 12% and 24%. That's a lot of extra stats here. So I really do overall like Golbez's stats. I think that he is a very powerful mage. But he does have some very obvious weak points that could end up getting him in a lot of trouble. So you know what, let's just throw... apparently all of this is just completely out of order because I had to reinstall this game. So of course... let's throw him with another mage in here. Why not? We have mages. We can do this kind of thing. This is not necessarily correct, but we don't want her to steal the show, really. All right, we'll get that little speed and boost, and let's just take a peek here and see what we can get done on this map. I really do like Golbez. I think that he is a very, very powerful character. I think that he is an absolutely amazing farmer. If you remember my recommendation of Dark Witch Helena, she is just the most key essential character in the game, just because of her farming capability. It is really useful to run characters that can essentially get farming done and get farming done reliably. And I think Golbez is exactly like that. As a matter of fact, he has the benefit here of pairing up with Dark Witch Helena, making for an even better farming team. I think that is potentially just so powerful as to what, that kind of result can be. As you can see, he's dealing really good amounts of damage here for anybody who's just interested in this character. But he does have counters. I do think that spear units such as Oberyn, even though he's not the direct elemental counter, and I feel like a lot of people will be like, well, Camilo is a very obvious counter to that. I feel like Oberyn on the JP side, in terms of like me as a JP player, is a much more common thing to see happen nowadays. Like, I don't see that often. I don't often see like Cecils or whatnot. I see more than often times over in a lot of PvP stuff. A little bit less now because Wind has been starting to pick up a bit in terms of its capabilities with the addition of a wind-based mage. But Kayn is also getting his EX, something we haven't talked about yet, and that is still dangerous to him. And I do think that a really well-built magic tank, such as, for instance, Charlotte, could be a serious thorn in this guy's side. And Charlotte was popular enough that it is a consideration. So I think Golbez is a great character. I think that if you get him and you max him, you will not be sad with his performance. However, very clear and obvious weak points to where he falters against specific enemy types. And if there is ever a light-based fist unit in the future, which could happen because monks exist, and as I've been reminded recently, Preesh from Final Fantasy XI is more than likely to be a light-based fist character, and she totally could come to the game. She is one of the more recognizable Final Fantasy XI characters out there. As a matter of fact, Shantoto and Preesh, there you go. There's like an entire event right there. Golbez has really cool animations. He has a weapon that is essentially tailored to him. He feels like an event. Him coming to this game feels like an actual event. So that's great, and it is really cool. Like let's just to take a look at this guy's limit burst right here. Oh, and there is a pity timer too. I didn't mention that earlier, but there is in fact a pity timer. Here, let's take a look at the limit burst, because this is awesome. This is cool. This is really cool. The only way it could be cooler is if he had like the Shadow Dragon, like kind of, but maybe we'll get a Shadow Dragon version in the future. I think he's really great, but for JP players and for global players, something to remember is that there are best characters now, and those best characters are very, very strong. If June was any an introduction into the best characters, I have no doubt that the newer best characters are going to be just as good. But you know what? For the sake of this video and the sake of entertainment and the sake of the fact that I cannot right now do any live streams because I've been temporarily locked out of Twitch because of my computer crashing and just trying to get everything back into place, here's a multi-poll for you for some fun excitement. I'm not expecting anything off it, but hey, should we? No, we should probably do the 9-step, shouldn't we? I mean, there's no way I'm spending 10k lapis on this. I'm trying to save right now, so we'll do one on the 9-step because there's a potential free 3rd step, but that's essentially, so here you go. Enjoy YouTube and my Twitch people who can't watch me on Twitch right now. Apologies for that. I guess we need somebody over here. Let's Wedge is actually on vacation right now, so here's a Moogle. Here's a lucky Moogle. All right, we got a couple of chances. There could be a rainbow here. Let's see. It's been a while since we have had a Moogle on stream, or on video, I should say. Also, the video hasn't crashed yet, so that's great news for me. Okay, that wasn't good. Oh, we got a upgrade. That's a Chocobo. Should have picked the Chocobo for this one. Oh well. So yeah, there you go. Golbez, really strong character, but some very obvious flaws that could that definitely stop him from being like I think too much of a necessity. If you're interested in staying for best characters or potentially waiting to see what the future has, I think that's totally fine. You're not necessarily missing out, but people who do get him will, I think, be very happy with the result because an amazing farming character. Anyway, thanks for watching. Let me know what you think of Golbez in the comments below. And sorry if I'm at all distracted. See you next time.